Remember yourself, always and everywhere. This maxim succinctly envelops all of the wisdom of the mysterious and controversial teacher, philosopher and spiritual guide, George Ivanovitch Gurdjieff. During the 19th and 20th centuries, Gurdjieff rose to the highest ranks of the European intellectual elite and captivated the world with his teachings and innovative methods of self-development. Gurdjieff wove together ancient and esoteric knowledge with new revolutionary techniques and philosophies to inspire, enlighten, and wake up all who followed him. A man of many talents, he became known worldwide as a mystic, philosopher, guru, writer, composer, and dance teacher. By integrating his vast knowledge of religious, philosophical, and spiritual ideas that he learned through his extensive travels, Gurdjieff created many self-development methods that are still utilized today. His invention of the fourth way offered a unique path that integrates the development of body, mind, and emotions, allowing individuals to pursue spiritual growth in the context of everyday life. His practices of self-remembering and the use of the Enneagram have become popular in the fields of psychology and philosophy, influencing countless individuals and prominent figures such as Pyotr Ouspenski and Aldous Huxley. However, Gurdjieff's life is not without controversy. While some continue to paint him as an enlightened guru, many others have come out with accusations that he was not a benevolent teacher, but rather a power-hungry, maniacal charlatan who was obsessed with creating his own cult of personality. George Gurdjieff was born in 1866 in Alexandropol, which is now the current Armenian city, Gyumri. His ancestors migrated from Turkey as shepherds, and his father was a carpenter. This is especially interesting for anyone who is partial to the more mystical readings of reality, as both shepherding and carpentry have been common professions of prophets throughout time. His father was also a well-known bard, and Gurdjieff grew up listening to him recite and sing poems, songs, legends, and folk tales that had been preserved through an ancient oral tradition. One of these stories that most impacted the young philosopher was the Epic of Gilgamesh. This poem had been long forgotten until an archaeological dig found tablets with the inscribed story in the city of Nineveh. This discovery led to a worldwide interest in the text that eventually made its way to Gurdjieff. Hearing about the discovery of an ancient text containing a story that his father had often recited to him caused Gurdjieff to have his first vocational experience. As he put it, "When I realized that here was that same legend which I had so often heard as a child, in almost the same form of exposition as in the songs and tales of my father, I experienced such an inner excitement that it was as if my whole future destiny depended on all this." Realizing that these ancient stories have been preserved for years by people like his father sparked an insatiable desire in Gurdjieff to find more of these esoteric and ancient myths and teachings. This led to him setting off from Alexandropol and traveling through the Middle East and Central and Eastern Asia to seek the hidden truths of the world. Upon completing his travels, Gurdjieff moved to Russia and quickly began attracting the attention of the country's intellectual elite. Lawyers, doctors, philosophers, and other prominent figures flocked to him, intrigued by his mysterious persona and teachings. One follower remarked, "Mr. Gurdjieff was an unknown person, a mystery. Nobody knew about his teaching, nobody knew his origin, or why he appeared in Moscow and St. Petersburg, but whoever came in contact with him wished to follow him." The backdrop of World War I further amplified Gurdjieff's allure, as the conflict led to the destruction of many religious and occult texts, making Gurdjieff's collection of ancient wisdom even more precious. It was during this tumultuous time that Gurdjieff formulated one of his most notable theories, the fourth way. The fourth way combines and evolves the three traditional paths towards enlightenment: the way of the fakir, or physical discipline, the way of the monk, or emotional devotion, and the way of the yogi, or mental discipline. Gurdjieff believed that all these paths had their merits and sought to merge them into a holistic practice that addressed all aspects of the human experience. He explained, "The fourth way has no definite forms like the ways of the fakir, the monk, and the yogi. It is never a permanent way, and there are no institutions connected with it. It appears and disappears governed by some particular laws of its own." Unlike the traditional paths that required retreating from society, Gurdjieff's fourth way allowed individuals to pursue spiritual growth while remaining engaged in their everyday lives. He taught that most people live in a state of hypnotic sleep, unaware of their true potential and deeper realities. Through methods like self-observation, physical exercises, and inner work, Gurdjieff believed people could awaken from this slumber. As he was developing the fourth way, Gurdjieff also created the Enneagram. This geometric symbol illustrated key concepts in his spiritual and philosophical framework and explained universal laws and processes of transformation. Some believe the Enneagram has roots in Jewish mysticism, Christianity, or Sufism, but its specific implementation within the fourth way is distinctly Gurdjieff's creation. The Enneagram consists of a circle, an inner triangle, and a hexagonal movement connecting 9 points. The circle represents unity and wholeness, while the inner triangle, connecting points 3, 6, and 9, relates to the law of 3, which posits that active, passive, and neutralizing forces must combine for any action to occur. The hexagonal movement, connecting points 1, 4, 2, 8, 5, and 7, represents the law of 7, illustrating the stages of development and transformation that all phenomena undergo. Gurdjieff believed understanding these laws could help individuals anticipate and overcome life's challenges. He used the Enneagram to compose sacred dances, demonstrating the fluid nature of these principles. These dances would later bring him to America, further spreading his teachings. However, Gurdjieff's methods were not without criticism. Some saw his approach as manipulative and psychologically taxing. P.D. Ouspenski, a key disciple, noted that Gurdjieff's techniques could be harsh, stating, "Sometimes it seemed to me that he drove people too hard and expected too much of them." Despite these criticisms, Gurdjieff maintained that the discomfort was necessary for true growth, calling it intentional suffering, which he believed was crucial for self-realization. Through practicing the fourth way, Gurdjieff taught that individuals could progressively awaken from their sleep state and experience their deepest being and ultimate reality. His blend of practical and mystical elements continues to intrigue and inspire despite the controversies surrounding his methods and persona. In the wake of the Russian Revolution, Gurdjieff moved to Fontainebleau in France. It was here that he started the Institute for the Harmonious Development of Man. As the name suggests, the institute was focused on the holistic development of self through the principles laid out in the fourth way. Along with the practices of self-remembering, sacred dances, and inner work, students took part in lectures and discussions on different aspects of Gurdjieff's philosophy, such as the Enneagram. The institute attracted fascinating characters from around the world, bringing together artists, intellectuals, and spiritual seekers of all backgrounds. In this way, the institute cultivated an environment of intellectual and spiritual discourse and support, where ideas could be freely discussed and debated. However, many people have mounted critiques of Gurdjieff during his development of the institution, claiming that he exploited his wealthy followers and was more focused on financial gain than actually helping his students. He charged high prices for attending his seminars and lectures and formed close relationships with his more affluent followers, often turning to them for donations. He also lived a lavish lifestyle, dining at high-end restaurants and staying in fancy accommodations. This focus on wealth, which seemed hypocritical in some ways to his teachings of relative asceticism and discipline, led some of his followers to question his integrity. It was this suspect relationship with money that caused one of his most devoted followers, P.D. Ouspenski, to separate from Gurdjieff. He wrote, "Gurdjieff's demands for money and resources were often excessive and unreasonable, contributing to my eventual separation from him." However, many of Gurdjieff's students never felt like he was coercive or devious in his intentions and thoroughly praised him and his institute. One student who attended the institute wrote, "La priori, Gurdjieff's Institute for the Harmonious Development of Man was a place of profound transformation. It attracted some of his most dedicated followers and created an environment where intellectual, physical, and spiritual growth were pursued with great intensity and dedication." While the institute closed after Gurdjieff's death in 1949, many of his students continued to spread his teachings, and there are many popular books about the concepts taught at the institute that his followers have written. Later in his life, Gurdjieff began to formulate his ideas into written works of philosophy. He authored a trilogy of books between 1930 and 1940, each one with its own unique perspective, purpose, and form. The first of this collection was his magnum opus, Beelzebub's Tales to His Grandson. In this allegorical work, Gurdjieff creates the character of Beelzebub and uses his stories to critique modern society, human behavior, and the lack of true awareness and understanding in people. The purpose of the book was to prompt deep self-reflection and assist in the transformation of consciousness within the reader. His second book, Meetings with Remarkable Men, was an autobiographical account of his travels and search for wisdom, focusing on all the unique and remarkable individuals who left a lasting impact on his beliefs and philosophical framework. As he described the events of his life, Gurdjieff insists on the necessity of seeking truth and explains how many of his teachings evolved through his own search for wisdom and meaning. However, this book has been widely criticized, as many people believe his stories were largely fabricated or at least embellished. Gurdjieff actually addressed these claims directly, saying that his book was only 10% fantasy. His last book, Life is Real Only Then, When I Am, is a more personal account of his beliefs, teachings, and view of the world, compiled from a collection of his talks, reflections, and writings in the later part of his life. This final book acts as a more direct guide for all spiritual aspirants who wish to better understand and practice Gurdjieff's teachings. As his health began to decline, Gurdjieff spent the last years of his life in Paris, continuing to write and teach his students up until his death. Some of the greatest minds of the 20th century were directly inspired by Gurdjieff and credited his teachings for influencing their works in philosophy, psychology, art, and science. The wisdom in the fourth way, the Enneagram, and his writings still guide spiritual seekers today in their quest for meaning and a deeper connection to reality. His words continue to reverberate through the modern world, imploring us all to do the necessary work to rise out of the mechanical, sleep-like existence that sterilizes the human experience and to awaken to our most fundamental and true state of being. As Gurdjieff taught, awakening is possible only for those who seek it and want it, for those who are ready to struggle with themselves and work on themselves for a very long time and very persistently in order to attain it. This struggle is what Gurdjieff called the work, referring to the unavoidable challenges that all spiritual seekers must meet to discover and harmonize with the true essence of their being. Yet, while Gurdjieff's teachings are celebrated and disseminated to this day, there remains an air of uncertainty and unease about whether he was truly a sage or merely a slick-tongued charlatan. His aggressive and intense methods, mixed with his overzealous pursuit of financial gains and his admitted fabrications in his autobiography, have led many to label him a phony con man or even an egotistical cult leader. This controversy around spiritual authority is not unique to Gurdjieff. Indian philosopher Osho faced criticism for his opulent lifestyle, drug use, and cult of personality, while the self-proclaimed spiritual entertainer Alan Watts was discredited for his alcoholism. Often, those who claim to have discovered the hidden secrets of the universe are subjected to extreme scrutiny and criticism. However, regardless of the validity of Gurdjieff's spiritual authority, it is undeniable that his teachings have inspired thousands of people and aided them in their journeys of self-development. Whether viewed as a profound spiritual teacher or a complex controversial figure, Gurdjieff's influence on the landscape of modern spirituality remains significant and enduring.